Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, specifically House of Scott, House of Ridley Scott. We're doing all of his historical epics, but the twist is we're doing them in temporal order. And so this week, we are talking about Kingdom of Heaven, which was written by William Monahan, who also wrote The Departed. I previewed this last week. I can't even deny. I know that sometimes we like to say, we try to be coy about our criticisms, and so that we say like, oh, I gave it 2 stars. What? We thought you loved it. Oh my God, we're having so much fun. But no, this is my favorite movie of all time. I love this movie. This is that film. Like, if somebody put a gun to your head and said, what's your favorite film of all time? This is what I say: Kingdom of Heaven, director's cut. And that's what we're talking about specifically. The director's cut, and longtime listeners know that whenever there's multiple cuts, we always go with the director approved edition. And by we, I mean Darren Moser and John Mills. Darren, how are you doing?
Doing good. God wills it. So I'm really enjoying this movie. But no, I'm looking forward to chatting about Kingdom of Heaven. It's a bit of a temporal whiplash. We went from 180 AD to 1184, literally 1,000 years in time. But yeah, this is going to be fun to talk about. Just also, it's that peak Bloom energy. Like, this was 05 Orlando Bloom. You just after Pirates and Lord of the Rings had catapulted him to like superstardom, and
one could say that his career really bloomed.
They could. Now taking over this podcast after that fiasco, John Mills. How are you doing?
I'm excited to talk about this too, because the only reason I actually saw this movie was because of Tristan. So, because he
wouldn't be quiet until you saw it, right? That's what I'm sensing from.
He went a step further than that, my friend. I'll go ahead and go into the story here, but Tristan and I were friends. We're talking on texting, Twitter, blah blah blah, all back and forth, everything. Somehow, Kingdom of Heaven comes up, and I'm like, nah, I never saw it. I'm not really blah 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 blah. And he knows me well enough by this point, and he still knows me this well now, but like, he knows me well enough by this point that like, I can say I'm putting something on the queue and I'll get around to it, but that's a very long and arduous wait. And if you really want me to watch something, he figured out the shortcut, which is I go to my mailbox one day and I'm like, package from it. What is this? And I open it up, and it's a copy of Kingdom of Heaven, with the director's cut. And it basically a note saying like, watch the director's cut. I was like, fine, okay, I'll do it.
So
whatever.
Before there was Plex, you're saying there was old school Tristan Netflix where he would just mail you the discs?
It's true.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it was the insane Robin flicks. And it was really, we'll talk about it during the show, but after I watched it, I understood why he was so big on having me watch it. Like, I understood. I was like, oh wow, okay, I get that. So yeah, looking forward to talking about it.
Darren, what was the first time how was the first time you watched this?
This was probably the maybe third time watching it now. First time for the director's edition for sure, but I did see this theatrically in 05 when it came out. I don't remember particularly why, if anything drew me to it. Probably Orlando Bloom. Everybody watched Orlando Bloom movies back then, but but I remember seeing it, and it's Ridley Scott. So, I was in school as a film major, so you had to go see the latest Ridley Scott movie. Like, it was you got a credit for it, I'm sure, somewhere in academia, but yeah, that would have been the first time I saw that. And yeah, it's a good movie, but it is also one of those where, like, I'm not going to be like, you know what? It's a Saturday afternoon, I'm going to pop in Kingdom of Heaven. It's like, you got to kind of, it's like Schindler's List and these other like epics in that regard, where like you have to kind of be in the right mode to chomp into something like that, because it's intense. It's a glorious film.
Yeah, like you said, this is not one that you can just that you normally just say like, yeah, let's take a look
I mean,
at
I
this
know
one.
in your household, I'm sure every other weekend it's like Kingdom of Heaven, but
It's
for
quite
us
possible.
mere mortals, we
And so
we
when was
ration
the first
ourselves.
time that you watched the director's cut?
That would have been this weekend. So I had only seen the theatrical. I think I had remembered that they did have a director's cut, but I don't have 85 copies on 3 different medias of this movie like you, so I did not have a chance to watch it yet. But I did enjoy the director's cut. I felt, it was the kind of cut where it had been so long since I had last watched it. It wasn't like something jumped out of like, oh, this is new, I don't remember this. It was more like, I'm like, this is probably extra. And this is, because it was a lot more character beats and backstory, I think, is what they really added a lot of. And it all just made sense because that's just more to the story. So, but yeah, it's always fun to rewatch something, and, little surprises like, oh, there's Alexander Siddig in it. Like, I didn't know I'd forgotten that he was in it, or I'd forgotten that this character was in it. And it's so fun just to see these other actors just pop up. But yes, so I would definitely choose watching the director's edition just because it was a fuller story, for no reason than that. And when time has no meaning and slips the surly bonds of sky, it doesn't matter how long the movie is. So
yeah, for those of you who don't know, the director's cut is 46 minutes longer. Like there's actually 3 cuts of this movie. There's the theatrical cut, the director's cut, and the roadshow edition. The roadshow edition is the exact same thing as the director's cut, except it has a prologue, an intermission, and an epilogue. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments, where it's just music playing for a couple minutes in between.
Well, it doesn't have any mooses or mises in it, so I won't watch the prologue without that.
What?
Is that a Monty Python
reference?
Yes,
it's a Monty Python reference. Thank you,
credits
John.
at the beginning. The credits at the beginning of Holy Grail.
Yes.
Yeah.
I need
no idea.
I need mooses and mises in my prologues. That's what.
No, really, he was bitten by a moose. Yes, I know. Yes,
it's okay. I know it's a deep cut, a hard left turn in the discussion. But back to God. So,
so. I don't know.
You're talking about prologues and the road edition.
Prologues, yeah. So, yes. So the thing about this movie is that this was the shooting script. Like they were like this. They like William Monahan actually had a much longer script, but he had parentheticals that described how to say every single line. Where it's just like he said wolfishly, like things like that, which is a big no in screenwriting. Which is, I'm really surprised that he did that. And they were about to send the script to Fox, and one of the producers is like, okay, I got to get rid of all the parentheticals, and I think it took like 20 pages off, or it was some ridiculous number like that, and then they sent it to Fox, and that was the shooting script. And both Ridley Scott and William Monahan said this is a movie that takes place during the Second Crusades, and it's an examination of religion and the cross section of Jerusalem at that time, and fanaticism and coexistence and belief. And for some reason, Fox heard, an action movie with a lot of romance. And so that's how they marketed it. And so he came back with this cut. He said, here you go. And they're like, are you insane? We're not going to release this. This is way too long. Give us a 2-hour cut. And so like in order to get it distributed, Ridley Scott had to, he didn't cut it down to 2 hours. They negotiated to 2:20. I can't even imagine what a 2-hour cut of this would look like.
Garbage.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so they released it that way, and it did not connect with an audience. It didn't make a lot of money. It did better in Europe than it did in the States. And people kept saying, oh, it felt incomplete. And Ridley Scott's just like nodded his head like, yeah, I wonder why.
But
and
see,
he released the director's cut. And then, I mean, critics were raving about it.
But see, this is what's so fascinating to me, and the simple fact that a director like Ridley Scott, like their career goes through these ebbs and flows of how much pull they have. But I mean, it's just a few years previous that he's delivered Gladiator, which is this massive hit, which is this historical epic, which is all of these things that was close to 3 hours running time. You know, you look at Titanic. Right? Like that was Cameron sticking to his guns and being like, guys, I gave you Terminator 2. Okay. Can we just get this one out the door? And they're like, yeah, okay, fine. Your 4-hour movie can get released. You know, like, I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, maybe it's changing, you know, distributor or production, because 20th Century Fox did Kingdom of Heaven, but he hadn't worked with them since like 85. So I don't know the difference between that. So yes, you could hold up Gladiator and they'd be like, yeah, that's Universal. What have you done for us?
That is very much a thing. That is very much a thing. And also oh my gosh, like the amount of changing of the guard that Fox has had over the years, especially in the early aughts and late 90s, was insane. And so you had to rebuild relationships constantly. And if you didn't have a legacy relationship with the studio, then it was very much, that's okay. You did that for Universal, but that doesn't mean that you've done that for us. But you'd think that the name Scott would have enough pull to go, no, this is what we're going to do. So one thing with me watching this, I did not see this in the theater, and I have no idea why I didn't see this in the theater. I was at college at the time, and I'm so utterly confused as to why I didn't see this in the theater, because this is exactly the type of film that I'd want to see. This was a Blockbuster rental for me, and actually it wasn't even a rental. I just bought it. Like, it was used at Blockbuster for real cheap, like back in the day when they had their used DVDs. And I just picked it up, and then I watched it. I was like, "Hey, that was pretty good. Like, it wasn't nothing mind blowing, you know. Just like it didn't really catch me the right way." And then when I found out that the director's cut came out, I just bought it again. I just bought it on DVD, and I watched it, and my little mind was blown. Like, it was on 2 discs, and I still remember where the cut is. And it's just I was just like, why on earth wasn't this released? Like, yes, I know, like the shorter it is, the more showings you get in a day, and so the distributors get their money back faster. I get it. But when you compare the two, there is no comparison. It feels like 2 different movies, and not literally, of course, but not like Amadeus, but it's just absolutely, the criticisms were absolutely accurate when it first came out. It felt incomplete because it was. And you get full-fledged characters. You get the son, you get her grief is way more like Ava Green's grief makes way more sense now for what she was going through and how she reacted to it. And just the character of Balian and Liam Neeson, and just all these characters way more fleshed out, and you understood motivations more. I can never remember his name. It's a Reynald de Chatillon. That's right. Brendan Gleeson's character. Like, you understand his motivations a little bit more. Like, you see his, like, for lack of a better, like his misgivings and his war crimes. You see more of those, and like, when you watch them back, I'm not saying literally back to back, but when you watch one after the other, you're just like, oh, this makes much more sense. But like, it was a really good cut. Like, when you had to take out that much, it's amazing what they were able to do with the theatrical cut, how much they were actually able to salvage. So, you know, my applause to the editor.
Well, it's like they had to cut context, like little snips of context everywhere, rather than cutting out. Because what one storyline would you cut? Like, there's nothing, you can't do that. So you have to, you know, death by 1,000 minutes, reduce it down, or 45 minutes.
I've never once watched the theatrical cut, and because of all of these discussions, I never will. like this is the thing, is like I've only watched the director's cut, and I don't want to. Usually I'm at least intellectually curious to be like, oh well, what is this different cut like? But in this is one of those rare circumstances where I look at the director's cut and I say I don't want to know. I'm perfectly fine with never ever watching it.
Or like The Abyss for James Cameron, like his director's cut added a third act that was chopped.
True.
Which is different. I mean, I definitely don't feel like this movie had a third act removed, but it's always you're always worse for the wear when you have to cut it down. So you either cut a huge chunk of your movie or you slice every third minute down to get rid of those parentheticals.
I think that's the thing, is that like you do have something like Amadeus, which feels like a completely different movie, and then you have The Abyss, like you mentioned, that has a third act. Like it just adds an act. It's insane. With this movie, it's just less. Like the theatrical cut is just less, and so it feels like going from the theatrical to director's cut is an amazing experience. Going from the director's cut to theatrical isn't necessary, because that's one thing about this movie, is that it does not feel like it's an over 3-hour movie. Now, not because your interest is there. Like, does it feel weighty? Yes. Does it feel exhausting at times? Absolutely, because you have to devote that much time, and who has that kind of time? I actually had to cut it up over 3 nights, and I actually cut it up into acts. I was like, okay, end of act 1, I'm going to go to sleep.
I thought you were going to say you remembered where the VHS tape cut was, and you're like, that's where I'm going to stop for old time's sake.
Where the cut was when the king, played by Ed Norton, goes to Renaud and smacks him in the face and makes him kiss his kiss his diseased hand, and then we have the shot of Guy, that close up of Guy, and then boom, insert second disc.
I do, inevitably we would get here anyway, but you mentioned the editing, it's like, it just feels like less, and how much they were able to retain. So this, you said hats off to the editor. This editor, it's Dodie Dorn. Yeah. Is that how you pronounce or is it Dottie Dorn? Okay. Dodie Dorn.
I thought it was Dodie, but now I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I don't have a pronunciation guide, to go by, but, also worked on Memento by Christopher Nolan. So that's sort of like that's a pedigree right there, where it's like, well, of course she did an amazing job. Look at what she's done in the past.
And is this one of those movies that they shot in order of story? I thought I'd read that somewhere, but maybe I'm misremembering. Because
Gladiator was shot that way. I'm not sure.
That's probably what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to her next project, supposedly, according to Wikipedia, is going to be Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. But she has editing credit on his version of Justice League. So, which is another giant epic, multiple storyline sort of thing, where it's like,
you want to talk about putting stuff back in? That's the movie you talk about.
Yeah.
Like you get her, apparently.
Yeah, basically. So now she did also do Power Rangers. But, people got to, you got to pay the bills. Keep the lights on.
I was thinking, I was just like, oh, yeah, I love that movie. Oh, wait, no, the new one. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, she also, you know what? I overlooked this before. Also did Insomnia, which is a well-edited movie. It's not Nolan's best, but it's a well-edited movie, for
Absolutely.
sure.
I think, you know what? We talked about that. We talked about that on our
did.
Insomnia episode.
You're right.
Yeah, we talked about how fantastic the editing was.
For anybody who is new to the show, you can go on and just time travel back to earlier Houselights episodes, and we do talk about Insomnia when we were in the House of Nolan. So
okay, so John,
yes,
when you were coerced to watch this,
guilted into it, really,
I think that's probably more accurate.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
When you finished watching it and you said, you're like, oh, thank goodness I watched this. What made you say that? When you finished watching it, what were you feeling? What were you thinking? What made you say that was a good movie?
This is going to sound so trite and dumb probably to a lot of people, but so many times when you watch these big epics, they feel so bloated. There are so many things where you're going through. I mean, especially in a director's cut where you say, maybe that 10 or 15 minutes I could have leapfrogged over that. But the simple fact was that I felt like there was nothing non-essential to the story. And so the entire experience was I got a complete real arc. There was not a sense of there was not a sense of shortcoming in terms of putting too much in. And the simple fact that I was invested in every character throughout the entire thing and felt that Scott was saying something interesting about this idea of faith and duty and honor and all of these things and how they pull you in different directions. And sometimes it's not clear about which direction you really should go. Like you can really find yourself at a literal crossroads of, okay, well, I have all of these different inputs telling me what the right thing is to do in this situation, but I got to decide which one is the one to follow and the one that makes the most sense. And so, yeah, it really is just the fact that the characters are so real and so realized in the movie that I think that's why you stay connected from beginning to finish, is they feel real. I mean, obviously, I made the joke about it earlier. There are historical challenges, but this is the thing, and it's like I'll give him credit because it is actually Monahan who gave the defense of citing Shakespeare, and I do this too a lot of times as a cheat, and it's not just when I'm talking about Kingdom of Heaven, but a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that movie's historically inaccurate." Well, most everybody thinks Julius Caesar died the way that Shakespeare had him killed. It's like, that's not really what happened, guys. Like, I mean, it's like that plays were this. They were dramatizations.
And Heaven forbid we tell you a good story that's slightly not historically accurate.
Yeah, I'm not watching a documentary. Who cares, right?
I think I literally said those words to someone who was criticizing Kingdom of Heaven. Like they said very douchey, like, oh, it's a wonderful bit of fiction. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's right. Fiction. It's not a documentary. Yes, these were real people, but it's telling a fictionalized story, a fictionalized version of real events.
I think actually the best thing to do would be to carry a rolled up poster of Oliver Stone's JFK and just repeatedly hit the person until they recant, because that's a big work of fiction, but it's also a terrific film. So, go figure. And beautifully shot too. I can't believe he did that. Anyway.
Well, speaking of beautifully shot, like actually, I used, because I said that I was in college when this came out. I was in a visual literacy class, and one of my presentations was about how not a lot of people know, like non-film buff people who aren't into movies, don't understand that good movies, like real good movies, consider cinematography an art form. It's not just making sure people are properly lit and they're in the frame, but they actually utilize it as an art form. And this was one of the movies that I showed where I would take still frames, like my favorite stills from tons of well shot movies, and this was one of them. And I believed it in 2005 or 2006 at the time, and I believe it today. This is a beautifully photographed film. The light that is used, the color screen, the color scheme is so freaking consistent. Oh my gosh. It's and I say that as such a pro, as a not a con but a pro. It's so consistent. There's really only a few shots where you're kind of like, that could have been, like, that green screen's a little weird. Like that night sky looks a little weird. Like you can tell that it wasn't actually shot at night and things like that. But overall, the placement of the camera, the blocking, the movement, the CG, in order to enhance the battle effects. I know that's not part of cinematography, but regardless.
Yeah, I would counter that and say that it is, because a cinematographer has to deliver something that's going to work, with the effects team. Like, he has to shoot with that eye toward something that the effects team can work with. And
you're right.
I agree with everything that you're saying, and just what, to go to a little bit of a mind-blowing thing, obviously, he works on Gladiator and he gets tons of awards and nominations.
John Matheson, by the way.
John Matheson, yeah. And, he works on Hannibal, gets a little bit less praise, but because that was a little bit of a more mixed reaction to that movie. But the year previous to Kingdom of Heaven, he worked on Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera and got a ton of nominations for it. And trust me, I'm building to something here. Have either of you seen that version of Phantom of the Opera? It's the Gerard Butler singing Phantom of the Opera version.
I've seen it.
It's a beautiful movie. It really is. It's really well shot. But that got all of those nominations. But this got bupkis. Okay? Darren, I'll kick it to you first. Can you explain that to me, please? Please make it make sense.
No, it's a beautifully shot movie. It should have been... It's one of those movies where you feel like certain frames are drawn straight out of the storyboarding, like that become the visual language. And like a couple of shots that spring to mind are like the nighttime when the ship is sailing and it's like, it's dark because there's like no light. It's nighttime and you're on the ocean, but it's not dark we're literally not going to put anything on camera because that's how we would do it nowadays. And you couldn't see anything, but it's like lit by lightning and storm and foam. But probably my favorite shot in the whole film is the first time we see the Crusader army approaching and the giant golden cross. It is because you're like 100 yards away in this wide shot and you're like, I wonder where the king is. Probably right there, because your eye is just drawn to this like 30-foot gold leaf cross that they're, some poor people are having to carry around into battle. But it's impactful. You're like, yeah, I see why they would carry that, because if I was an enemy and that came over the ridge, I'd be like, oh crap, like this is serious. But yeah, it's like Lord of the Rings even, where you have just these composed shots and beauty to it. Or even in the quiet moments where he's on his land for the first time and you're just getting these slow pans of the muddy fields beneath him. But you feel like this is a real place. I don't know how much was digital set extension or miniature work or whatever. I didn't even care about any of that watching this. It was just like, visually tell me this story, put me in this location. And I felt they did. I don't know where they shot this or if it was all on location or whatever. I never saw the seams. And I'm sure they were there, if you look for them, but I didn't need to.
Yeah, Scott loves to shoot in Morocco. Gladiator was there. Body of Lies was there. Black Hawk Down. Now, lots of this was practical, and that's what's really great. Like, he built siege towers, and they did it in the traditional way, like how they would have been built. And he actually destroyed one of the siege towers, but he shot it from 11 different angles, and so that they can composite them to look like all of them were being destroyed. And he had, I'm going to read these numbers. He had 301,000 square feet of wall that they constructed to be the wall of Jerusalem, using 6,000 tons of plaster. And the front of the set was 1,200 feet long, and the walls were 56 feet tall. And the city of Kerak was on the other side. And some producer came up with that idea, and let's put Kerak on the other side. And they're like, you just saved us $5 million, and they got a pat on the head. And it's just crazy, how much of this is practical. And on top of that, they I think they actually got some a 12,000 to 15,000 costumes were made. And the king of Morocco is a friend of Ridley Scott and loaned him 1,500 military personnel and equipment for this movie.
And I think you just answered why Ridley Scott loves to shoot in Morocco.
There you go.
Hey, King, can you help me out here?
Yeah, because that's true. I mean, this is '05, so it's around the time of Return of the King. So you have visual effects like the massive system for army generation and building. And I'm sure that was used, or things and effects like that were used at times. But yeah, the heavy reliance on practical, like I'm sure in many of those shots, it's literally like 10,000 people standing there, like, or at least in the front row. And it feels real. And
one thing
they're
I
all
wanna-
holding a gallon of blood under their arm so that when they get hit, they can just be like, ugh, and just, because we don't spray in this movie. We get a gush of blood out of like a liter of blood at a time.
You know what? It creates beautiful, beautiful shots. So I'm all for it. Absolutely.
Speaking of the violence, one thing I really appreciated about this movie is that one thing that I appreciate about Gladiator is that the violence, they kind of cut away at the last second for the violence, and it really helped.
Lots of implied violence.
There was a lot of implied violence. It worked for the story. It worked for the type of tone that Scott was going for with that movie. Kingdom of Heaven director's cut did not shy away from the violence whatsoever, and I appreciated it for that as well. Like I think you can have one or the other, and I think it worked for this tone. And like it was just think about the forest scene.
Yeah, I was thinking of the forest scene
when Balian catches up with Liam Neeson's character, and it's the next morning. He's teaching him how to duel, and then all of a sudden the dude's like taking a leak, or like he's squatting behind a tree, and then all of a sudden, boom, arrow in the face, and you're like, oh, okay, so I should not be laid back during this scene.
Yeah, and then the German guy gets a crossbow bolt to the neck and keeps fighting for like the next 3 scenes, and you're like, dang.
And that's when you realize, crap, all these interesting fighters.
Surprise, these aren't main characters. They're not going to make it past this scene. Yeah.
Yep.
And I was so bummed, like when we see the German guy and the black guy. I was like, man, these people were cool.
Yeah. One person, like besides Orlando Bloom, survived and continued on in the story from that scene.
So originally the script was going to start at the shipwreck scene.
Really? The whole story was going to start there?
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't know where he's coming from or why he's here, but he's on a crusade and he's heading towards Jerusalem.
Yeah, he's going to Jerusalem. And because Monahan was like, I'll never be able to get this made if I don't start here. And Ridley Scott got wind of the project, read the script, and he's just like, and asked him if he had any other versions. And he said, yeah, I have a longer one. And he read the longer one. And he's just like, yeah, this is the one I want to do. And I just find that fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, and just story-wise, we were chatting a little before recording, Tristan, about, again, the director's edition adding a lot of context and a lot of backstory, like the fact that I'm pretty sure it adds the fact of like, who is the monk that kind of sells him out and tries to get him out of there? Like, it's his half brother, and which makes a little more impactful moment when it's like, dude, read the room. Like, don't talk about cutting off your brother's wife's head when he's literally forging a sword. Like, I mean,
man, how does that phrase go? How does that phrase go? Doesn't see murder right in front of his face. I think that's the phrase.
But that, and then also, Liam Neeson, and more of a connection between him. And I loved, it's so interesting that was the most interesting part of the whole movie to me, was the essence of how these people act in this time. And I know it's a story, but the fact that, when he arrives in Jerusalem and they're all like, think it, these people just live here in Jerusalem. Their master leaves for an unknown amount of time, and maybe he'll come back. People die all the time. You never know. And then a guy shows up claiming to be his son. So what do? You say, okay, well, he stood this tall. And the guy's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, and he had green eyes. And they're like, no, blue. They're like, oh, pass the check. We now dedicate our lives to you. But that's literally all you had to go on. Like, that was it. There was no, well, let me phone a friend in, the UK or Germany and find out, what's going on. So it was fun watching these moments of men not be in service to each other, but just, it's like when you're living in this time, you got this sense of, I have one life to live and I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So right now I'm bonding myself to you. I am your sword, or I will go with you on this quest, or I will look out for you. Or when his friend marches to his known death, he's like, my order is going here. And what am I to do but go with them? And that's such a fun part of this era of history.
I love David Thewlis. Is that how you pronounce it? Thewlis? I love his character in this. He's one of my favorite characters in this, just because of how you can. I love how critical he is of religion, but yet he's a believer, and he puts his faith in God. He puts his trust in God, and he marches off into battle. And he's just like, yeah, we're not going to survive this, and that's okay.
Well, there's the dichotomy between his "if God wills it" and the way he almost whispers it, and then you have someone like Guy who's like, "Well, God wills it. We're going to," like manipulating with the same words, but it's a completely different manifestation of what he's trying to accomplish.
I feel like they did such. Well, I feel like Monahan and Scott walked that line beautifully of showing both sides, like showing Islam, showing Christianity, showing the gross sides of Christianity and the good sides of Christianity, the gross sides of Islam and the good sides of Islam. It was so well done, and none of it felt like pandering. And and things were critical, but it didn't feel like, oh, you're taking a cheap shot.
Well, I think, just to pile on to that, right? Just to add on to that, I think it's because of the fact that they approached each person as a character. And the thing is, a person's religious belief.
Guess what? People are complex,
right?
If you didn't know.
Yeah, no, but that's exactly it. Is usually when you're dealing with a movie that deals with this sort of topic,
right?
It's it's broad brush strokes. That
I'm a black hat, you're a white hat.
This person is representative of this aspect of a thing, and it's like, no, in this, things are contextualized in what I would say is the proper way, where it's like these people's religious belief is a part of their character, but it's not all that they are. And so, yes, you're going to have people who are saying the same words, but this guy's an a-hole and this guy's a survivor sort of thing. And so it's like when they say God wills it, it's them saying it. And it's not this sort of broad, messy brushstroke that is usually applied in a situation like this. And again, I think that's why it's so engaging from beginning to finish, is because you can sit there and you can say, oh, okay, he's telling story about people. He's not sitting there saying, this is my statement on religion. He's saying these are people who are, in a very staunchly religious setting, in like where it's a motivating factor for them, but it's not. I'm not talking about their religion. I'm talking about them and how they used it in their own lives. And the audience can sit there and say, "Oh, well, that guy, seems to have been applying it properly, and that person was just looking for any tool possible to motivate everybody around him to do what he wanted." And it's like, that's that distinction. That's that complexity that is so important in something like this to be a great film.
Especially with something like this, especially with this subject matter. And you're doing it right when you piss off both sides. Because in I think it was either in 2004 or 2005, before the movie came out, and like someone said, someone who was claimed to be Christian said that they got a hold of the script and said it was disgusting, and that and that Osama bin Laden would have been proud of it or something like that, and glorifies the people who follow Osama bin Laden or something like that. And then it was outed that he never actually got a script and he just made it up. And then there were people. Then you had someone who claimed to be a Muslim who said that the movie just portrayed them as barbarians and horrible people and backwards and disgusting and everything like that. But then the movie actually came out, and it was actually praised by the Muslim community at how well it portrayed and how respectful it portrayed Salah ad-Din.
And that's part of their history too. It's all history. It's all, aspects. And man, just I just love all the characters. Like, this is a powerhouse of a movie of actors. Like, and I love again that it's a story, but it's not a Hollywood story. Like, I keep thinking of, Jeremy Irons. I love Jeremy Irons as Tiberius. And at the end, he's like, I'm not going to go with you with my knights. I'm going to leave and go to Tripoli or whatever. How much you want to bet if this movie was made nowadays at the 11th hour, guess who's riding in over to save Jerusalem? It's going to be him coming back. No, he's done. You never see him again in the rest of the movie. It's like, because that's actual realistic of what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That totally felt like such a jerk move, because when he even did the whole he tapped him on the shoulder and said, like, you'll be fine, you'll be all right.
Yeah, it's no, you won't. But
no, the entirety of the of Saladin's army is coming. It's cool.
Yeah, Saladin was my drinking word for this movie, because I don't know why, but I heard it a lot. Like, I mean, it's not a bad word, but it's his name, obviously. But it was like, that was the word that kept popping out in my mind. It was like, Saladin is here. Go see Saladin. Saladin is coming for you. And it's like, so much Saladin.
Well,
it was great.
I mean, I'll throw out there, obviously we all have a very high opinion of the film and everything like that. I honestly, I hope that there are other filmmakers and other studios that have the wherewithal to keep pushing for stuff like this, because I think it's very easy to look at, the landscape of what is being released for film, and it's like I would never ever go down the path of the Martin Scorsese sort of criticism of modern film, but it goes through ebbs and flows, right? What is popular, what is not sort of thing. But what I hope is that the blockbuster dominance of like a Marvel, which I saw the movies in the movie theater too. I loved the Marvel movies. I still do. But I hope that we start to get a little more room for this type of movie to come back in, and that the studios have the gumption to say, we can get movies like this out there now. There's a content push. Let's get people in front of things and get them out to see these sorts of things, so that we can have a spirited discussion and get that occasional gem that's going to come out, that's going to become something where I hadn't seen it. Tristan gets me to see it. Now, if somebody comes up and talks to me, I'm going to be like, you got to see this movie. I'll slap a copy in their hand and be like, you have to go and see this. I happen to have
a copy right here in my car.
Exactly. Hey, you never know. And it's like, I'm not, old man yelling at clouds sort of thing. But seriously, like, there is that ebb and flow where I look at how rare and difficult it is for something this epic, but also impactful, to get out there. I think that artistically it's a worthwhile endeavor if there's even just 5 people you can connect with, that you inspire them to become filmmakers, or to take a different view at different sorts of films. And I know that's not a financial sort of thing, but it's like Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. When he released the 4-hour Hamlet, that snuck in, that got out there, and it shaped the way some people saw film and what they wanted to see. And so I just want to see things like this get back in the mix.
Well, and like you said, John, it's an epic movie. I can totally see, I feel like it's been a while since we've done, like, how does this compare to the previous work of a director? Like, often we'll just talk about a movie, on its own merits, but I can totally see this is obviously Scott, obviously, like, because of Gladiator. I mean, we said the same thing. Gladiator is an epic, but it is so focused on the characters, that it doesn't have the epic bloat of, well, it's just an epic because of this giant set piece and this giant battle. It's epic because of the, I don't know, just I don't want to say like epicness, which I mean doesn't describe anything, but but this has the same flavor of epicness as Gladiator, where it is big and grand and amazing, but it is really a focused story on characters living amazing lives.
Mm-hmm. The scope is grand, but at the heart of it, you have the performances and the characters doing real things, and in a real way.
Yeah.
And since we have touched on the performances, I do want to go ahead and say that I don't understand the criticisms of Orlando Bloom. Like, if you go to the Rotten Tomatoes page for this movie, it is just people being savage with Orlando Bloom, saying he's uninteresting, that he can't pin the movie down, that this is, and somebody makes the inevitable, this is Lord of the Rings 4, Legolas defends Jerusalem. And I feel so annoyed when I see stuff like that, because I look at this and I see Bloom delivering. I see Orlando Bloom in this, and I know he's Legolas, but I see this and I go, oh, okay, this guy's got chops. I get this. And he's hanging in there with all of these other people that are heavy hitters.
Yeah, he's in a scene with Jeremy Irons. He's in a scene with Edward Norton. He's in a scene with these powerhouses, and he holds his own.
Yes, exactly. And so this movie, they don't seem to draw any distinction that I can tell on Rotten Tomatoes between the theatrical and the director's cut, but they savage Bloom, and it has a 39%, critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is one of those ones where I just can't process it. I can't process it because it feels like such a fundamental disconnect that this film, especially the director's cut, wouldn't be like that bolt of lightning for critics to rally around and say, you guys got to go see this. And I know the director's cut got more positive embrace. So I'm just going to say that Rotten Tomatoes must just be mixing, the theatrical and director's cut reactions. It's got to be, it's got to be a mix. So they got to find a way to fix those algorithms.
Now, before we talk about some other performances, which we absolutely need to, I do want to bring up, since we were talking about characters and you brought up, we compared it to Gladiator again. John, your co-host, Matthew Rushing, who is a co-host of yours on Aggressive Negotiations, which you can find at thenerdparty.com.
Indeed.
He texted me the other day, and he listens to this show, and he tries to watch with us when he can. And this was his first time. Yeah, this was his first time watching Kingdom of Heaven director's cut, I think, overall. And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. But he knocked off a half star because he said that the characters were not as engaging as those in Gladiator. So I thought I'd pose that question to you guys. How do you, Darren, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like these characters are less engaging than Gladiator? Is it apples and oranges? Are they on the same level in terms of character depth and motivations? What do you think?
I would say they're more engaging than Gladiator, because Gladiator was always Maximus Aurelius's, it was his story. He is definitely the lead character and everything is around him. This one felt like you had these other fully realized characters that would intersect the main character and then peel off. So you have Liam Neeson come, and again, he's only in the movie for a chunk of the beginning, and then he's gone. But it feels like this real person that had a beginning and a middle and an end. And same, with, you have Edward Norton's character, and you have, just all these characters that intersect the main hero, but they don't overshadow him. I never once felt like, boy, I really wish this was actually Liam Neeson in this role and he was the lead. It's no, but he brought his part that collectively they elevated this movie. So that's how I felt about it.
John.
Yes. I think that these characters exist outside of the main character. Everybody in Gladiator exists for Maximus. and doesn't seem to exist outside of Maximus. Even though you have Commodus has his own motivations and own relationships with other people, we understand Commodus as he relates to Maximus. And we understand all of these characters as they relate to Maximus. Whereas this, I think one of the neatest things is that you have a character, like you said, Darren, these people come in and they peel off again and they have lives outside of him. So we journey with this character in a much more, I think, accessible way. Maximus is a hero. He's bigger than life. He is somebody I look at and I admire and I enjoy and entertains me. Whereas, with this, I'm going through and I'm understanding and relating to this character and how he interacts with real people that come in and out of his life. And I see those people with their own concerns and beliefs and applications of things. So, that could just be a matter of preference. That could be, who knows what. But I do think that these characters are very engaging. I think one of the actors who would get overlooked actually at the end, because I think he does a fantastic job, is I forget the actor's name, but he plays Richard the Lionhearted, Ian Glenn. When he comes in, I love him. It's not a huge
it's the
role.
last 5 minutes of the movie, and then
I
it's done.
think he has such a charm and such a charisma that you see him come in and you're like, yeah, I could see people following this guy. And it's like, it's a teeny little piece, but even that character feels like somebody who exists. Yeah. So
that was originally offered to Russell Crowe.
I could see that.
That would have been cool.
I could very much see that.
At first I thought, oh yeah, that would have been cool. But then I was like, that would have taken me out of it.
Yeah.
I feel he's almost too big. And because of Gladiator and Scott's connection with Gladiator and this being a Sandals and Swords epic and everything like that. I feel like it would have taken me out of it. But I still would have thought it was still cool.
Yeah, it's not like I'm deducting points for it, but I like the fact that they had Ian Glenn, because I do think the guy had a real charisma, and I enjoyed.
And he does. That actor does. Like that he's a good actor. Now I want to talk about Eva Green.
Mm-hmm.
What a phenomenal and complex performance. This has to be the greatest performance of her career, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of her stuff, and she's done a lot of really great things. And she's done a lot of things not a lot of people have seen. Like, she has a varied career. She's done blockbusters, she's done indie, she's done foreign, she's done domestic. She's been all over the place. And this is, you buy her attraction to Balian. You buy her fierce protective nature of her child, even though she decides to end his life. You understand her relationship with her brother and her relationship to Jerusalem. It's you feel like, even though she's having a breakdown during the siege, she is still servicing Jerusalem. Yeah, she's still helping out, even though she has a breakdown. And it's just, originally, Monaghan did not want the Queen, Sibylla, and Balian to get together at the very end. He wanted her to just walk off in the distance, like walk off with the rest of everybody else, and he never sees her again. Like, the camera sees her, but Balian doesn't. I think it was Ridley Scott's decision to have that hopeful ending with Sibylla and Balian. John, what did you think of that? Like, do you think that she should have gone off with him? Do you think she should have just walked off into history? What do you think?
I could argue myself into either point of view. Either works. One ending is, in a sense, a reward for the audience. You stuck with it. You stayed with this character. Yeah. Things were difficult, but you know what? Let's leave you with on an up note, so that you can go out and you feel like there's still some hope and joy in this earth. That it's not all
very
gloom.
bleak time of history.
Right. Whereas, but the other ending sort of fits in with that whole thing of like there were no winners. Everybody just sucked.
I mean, she even says like, I'm still the queen of these other cities. Like, I can't just give that up. And it's like, you're kind of right, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like you, John, where I feel like I could go either way, but at the same time, I love a hopeful ending. I am such a sucker for a hopeful ending because
it's like a reward to him for doing the right thing. Like, there's that moment when they say like, you will have wished you had done a little evil now to usurp like a greater evil later. And it's like, yeah. And that kind of happens. Like, things go very badly because he won't be a part of killing Guy. Even at the end, he doesn't kill Guy, but this is like his reward for that.
Yeah.
It's Monahan's reasoning behind it was, he's like, for a person to go through this much, that much loss and pain, I don't think this is him speaking. I don't think she would have been ready to start a new relationship that quickly. And I get his reasoning, but at the same time, they had a previous relationship. They were drawn to each other. He saved the people. She serves the people. There's going to be that connection. There's going to be that, you can help me out of this. We can help each other. And so I'm in favor of the hopeful ending, because think about it. Think about those final shots so we see her, but Balian doesn't. She walks off into the distance. We find out he's back in his hometown. And then Richard the Lionheart walks by, and he says, he's like, go to where they speak Italian, then keep going until they speak something else. And then he rides off into the sunset, and the movie's over. It kind of feels a little like, like, what's he going to do?
Did we dream the Crusades? Did they actually happen?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say that, but just, it hits it a little harder, where it's just like, oh, this guy went through all of this and then has nothing to show for it. But then with Sibylla being there, you're not wondering where they're going. You're not wondering what they're going to do. All you're thinking is, they have each other. Good. That's what you're thinking. Yeah. So now, Darren, you brought up the do a little evil now. And what a test was that for a good night.
Because you're like, do it. Like, he's the bad guy. He's literally the most bad guy of all the bad guys in this movie. And I mean, and that's coupled with, I think what Jeremy Irons says, I can't remember if it was him specifically, but he's like, the world doesn't need a perfect knight, like this thing that you're holding up for these ideals. And I mean, boy, does he, I mean, his all of his people get killed, his land get burned. Like, is really bad because of that choice. But it morally, is that the right choice to not kill someone just to usurp their power? Like, it's like, hey, guess what? Life is complex.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that like, life is complex, and it's not just to usurp power, it's to make sure that Jerusalem doesn't go to war with Saladin. And it's, when you look at it that way,
it was a moment in history that had far-reaching implications. Like, think about it. If he had killed Guy, then they don't go to war. Like, it's like a pivotal point in time was that decision.
Right, because it's the end of the Second Crusades. The Christians lose Jerusalem, and then you have the Third Crusades, where Richard goes and tries to get it back. He fails miserably, and then that's it. Like that is like, by in this version, by Balian not killing Guy, this is a turning point in history in this telling.
Right.
Because in real life, like, Balian was born in Jerusalem, like, and like he like, Balian did have this battle, but there was way more complex on what was going on, and way more complex about like how he interacted with Saladin. And there was a lot, like, he interacted with Saladin before, and like there was a truce before, but then, like he said, it's like, okay, you can leave, but you can't defend the city. You just got to go. But then the people begged him to stay. And so he went to Saladin and says, like, can you release me from my vow? Like, just so I can defend. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, go defend Jerusalem. I'll fight you there. It's just like, it was a really, really weird and complex. And And historians to this day still don't know why Sibylla chose Guy to be the king, like knowing that this was going to happen. And yeah, it's just like these things are based off of real events, but so many, like, this is not an accurate, this is not history. This is not an accurate portrayal of history. This uses history as a backdrop. But that decision to not kill Guy, like every time I watch this, I just think, why didn't they just not tell him? Like, like they could have just, before the king died, all of a sudden, they could have just killed Guy.
All of a sudden, Guy is dead, and they're like, "Hey, by the way, we want you to be the leader." Like he's not dumb. He's gonna put it together. But he doesn't even kill Guy in the end when he has his second duel. Some would say the last duel with Guy.
Oh, he said it. He said it.
Well, he said the thing.
I'm glad that you kicked that. You kicked that segue up, because I could keep going, but someone needed to tell me to stop. So I think now is the time where we give our rating, and I don't even know if we should. Like, do we take the time? Or do we
let's test engagement and see. Let's have everybody guess what our ratings are for the Kingdom of Heaven Director's Cut. Come on, y'all! Send in your notes to us at Join Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. Go ahead and let us know what you think our ratings would be for this.
John, I'm checking Twitter right now. They're coming in.
Oh, already? Fantastic.
They're in already. Man,
social media is stunning. It really is stunning how fast it is.
And they all said 5 stars, and they would be right.
They would be spot on. Yes, spot on. Absolutely.
This is a 5-star film. This is a beautiful film, beautifully written, beautifully shot, beautifully directed, perfectly acted, wonderful cast, great portrayal of religion, great portrayal of faith, and great portrayal of Jerusalem and how it means everything and nothing. And before we go, one last thing that I really enjoyed, and this is something that I think I learned from the commentary, is that at the final scene, when they the Muslim army takes over Jerusalem, and we see Saladin walk into the place of worship. I can't remember exactly what it was. You see all these people, like they're throwing water and petals on the ground, and that's how they cleanse a space, is through water and flowers. And I always really like that. And the cross was on the ground, and Ridley Scott went to the actor who played Saladin, and I cannot remember his name. Ghassan Moussaoud. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrong. But he went to him. He says, "What would happen here? What would Saladin do? Like, would he just walk by it? Would he kick it? Like, what would he do?" And the actor said, he's like, he probably would do what I do. I would pick it up, and that's what they did. And it's such a beautiful moment. It's such an understated, respectful moment where you can have mortal enemies who respect each other and their beliefs and why they do what they do, and also understand that they have to do what they do, and because they're the leaders of their armies and their people expect them to do certain things. And I just thought it was a great moment that doesn't get a lot of conversation. And I just wanted to mention that before we go, that it was the actor's idea to do that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a beautiful moment.
So everyone, please tune in next week, because we're going to continue with our historical epics of Ridley Scott. And what year are we jumping to, Darren?
We're going to jump to 1389, so about another 200 years into the future, with The Last Duel, which, although in production-wise, we're jumping from 2005 to 2021, probably the largest jump we're doing at this time.
So it'll be a great, like, going from Gladiator to Kingdom of Heaven to Last Duel will be a great cross-section of Ridley Scott of this century. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
please join us as we continue on in this journey through the House of Scott.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.